of the man, Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah, is the story of his people. It is the story of the movement for liberation of the people of Pakistan, the story of their struggle for national identity and for its ultimate expression, an independent, sovereign national state, which came into being in August 1947. His story begins as that of a universally acclaimed champion of the freedom of the South Asian peoples, an ambassador of Hindu-Muslim unity, which he regarded as the fundamental necessity to meet the challenge of colonial oppression. Despite the instant popularity of Gandhian methods, the Quaid-e-Azam warned the people that beneath the apparent unity thus gained lay the seeds of disunity and discord. Mahatma Gandhi, who described himself as a politician trying to be a saint, evolved new religio-political methods based on Hindu doctrine. He had proudly said, "The Hindu mind is myself," and his use of Hindu doctrine as political method became the tacit mandate for Hindu revivalism. Hindu solidarity and Hindu cultural modes came to be identified with Indian nationalism. The United Front of 1916, forged with much care and labor by Jinnah, fell a victim to the resurgence of militant Hindu nationalism. Movements like Cow Protection, Shuddhi and Sangathan led to widespread anti-Muslim riots. Disabled, but not disheartened, by the orgiastic frenzy which possessed the people, the Quaid-e-Azam continued to work for a negotiated settlement between the two national groups. He hopefully attended the all-parties convention called by the Congress in 1928 to discuss the Nehru report for a future constitution. But the Congress under Gandhi's leadership had emerged as the chief instrument, as Maulana Muhammad Ali said, for the supremacy of Hinduism and the submersion of Muslims. As the Quaid-e-Azam said at the time, it was the parting of the ways. The Qaid's careful formulation of the minimum Muslim demands brought about a consensus among Muslim leaders of all shades of opinion. Jinnah's 14 points became the Muslim Charter, the basis of Muslim unity. The first round-table conference was held in London in November of 1930 to hammer out the basis for a future constitution for India. Of the Muslim leaders attending were the Aga Khan, Allama Iqbal, Maulana Muhammad Ali, Sir Shah Nawaz Bhutto, and the Quaid-e-Azam. Mahatma Gandhi had refused to attend unless the Congress was accepted as the only representative party to talk on behalf of India. The conference ended inconclusively. The haughty, uncompromising stance of the Congress and the failure of the Round Table Conference convinced the Muslims of the futility of seeking a negotiated settlement. At the Allahabad session of the All India Muslim League in the same year, Allama Iqbal dwelt on the essential disparity between the great cultural units of India, which made the model of British democracy unfit in a land of many nations. He had been anguished at the poverty of the Muslims, especially of the Muslim peasants of the Punjab. The gross impoverishment and indebtedness of the Muslim peasant was reducing him to the level of a slave. This was the likely fate of the Muslims as a whole in an India dominated by the Hindu commercial classes. Iqbal proposed, therefore, that the Muslim majority provinces should be amalgamated into a single self-governing state. The second Round Table Conference, like the first, broke down on the question of minority rights, which the Mahatma rejected as an irrelevant issue. The low-caste Hindus protested, on the grounds that the Mahatma did not represent them. On the promulgation of the communal award, conceding the demand for separate representation for the Hindu untouchables, as well as the Muslims, Mahatma Gandhi undertook a fast unto death. For him, it was a case of Hindu unity at all cost. The communal award formed the basis of the Government of India Act 1935. Some of its provisions, like separate electorates and the institution of Sindh, the northwest frontier, and Baluchistan as provinces, were welcomed by the Muslims, though disliked by the Hindus. In the 1937 elections, the Congress attained a majority in 7 provinces and started browbeating the Muslim League members into dissolving their party and joining the Congress. The League fared well in Muslim minority provinces and proved its claim to represent the Muslim people. The Congress leadership remained oblivious to the now apparent realities. The Congress ministries continued to ignore the rights, feelings, and sentiments of the Muslims and maneuvered for control in the Muslim majority provinces like the Punjab. Hindu, Sikh, and Muslim landlords under British patronage combined to keep the League out of office. This taste of a partial Hindu Raj impelled the Muslims to reconsider the ideas of Allama Iqbal. The Sindh Provincial Muslim League recommended the struggle for a separate homeland for the Muslim people. The beginning of World War II suddenly changed the perspective of events. The British government sought the cooperation of all political groups in its war effort with the promise of self-government at the end of the war. The Congress insisted on being accepted as the only representative organization of all the peoples of the subcontinent. The refusal of the British to comply with Congress proposals led to the resignation of the Congress ministries. Muslims everywhere heaved a sigh of relief. The Quaid-e-Azam called on them to observe December the 22nd, 1939, as the day of deliverance from Congress rule. The session of the All India Muslim League, held in Lahore on March the 23rd, 1940, proved to be fateful in the modern history of South Asia. Muslim politics had so far been a negative affair of safeguards within an Indian national framework. From now on, it would be a positive attitude of a nation in a multinational India seeking independent statehood. This qualitative change was embodied in the Lahore Resolution, to be later called the Pakistan Resolution. It declared that no solution would be acceptable to the Muslim people except one which envisaged that geographically contiguous units are demarcated into regions which should be so constituted, with such territorial readjustments as may be necessary, that the areas in which the Muslims are numerically in a majority, as in the northwest and eastern zones of India, should be grouped to constitute independent states, in which the constituent units shall be autonomous and sovereign. निशाने पे जिसका तीर लगता है ठीक जाके निशाने पे जिसका तीर ऐसी कड़ी. Nor had the importance of Sikhs as an important minority been ignored. They had been invited as honorable guests to hear the Muslim viewpoint. The Hindu Mahasabha held angry rallies, and its leaders assumed an increasingly militant posture. But the Qaid said, where is the country which is being divided? Where is the nation which is denationalized? India is divided and partitioned by nature. The Indian nation and central government do not exist. The war became a matter of immediate concern for the people of India when Japanese forces advanced and started bombing targets like Calcutta. This also made the British government renew their efforts for a settlement in India. The Congress, however, was interested only in an immediate and exclusive settlement between itself and the British government, which it urged now in the face of Britain's predicament. Sir Stafford Cripps came in 1942 with proposals which were acceptable to neither Congress nor the League. Gandhi insisted on an immediate transfer of power to the Congress. When this failed, he launched a movement asking the British to quit India. It was supposed to be non-violent. Yes, said the Quaid, divide and quit. In September of 1944, Gandhi and Jinnah held discussions. They could not come to an agreement because the Mahatma would not concede the basis on which a real dialogue could be held, namely that the Muslims are a nation apart and that the Congress can only speak for the Hindu nation. But the mere fact that the Jinnah-Gandhi talks took place represented a tacit admission on his part of both these facts. In the relaxed atmosphere of victory, there were renewed efforts at solving the constitutional stalemate in India.
Government to convene as soon as possible a constitution-making body. And as a preliminary step, they have authorized me to undertake, immediately after the elections, discussions with representatives of the legislative assemblies in the provinces to ascertain whether the proposals contained in the 1942 declaration are acceptable or whether some alternative or modified scheme is preferable.
The Congress executive directed its branches all over the country to prepare for the general elections on the issue of Akhand Bharat. Sardar Patel, the strong man, was to organize the campaign. The Quaid-e-Azam conferred with League leaders and announced that no solution was acceptable to the Muslims unless Pakistan was an integral part of it. He said, elections are the beginning of the end. If the Muslims decide to stand for Pakistan in the coming elections, half the battle will have been won. Leaders of the Sikh community had attended the Muslim leaders' meeting as guests, but the Muslim effort of coming to an understanding with them did not bear fruit. These were no ordinary elections, but rather a referendum on the issue of Pakistan. On both sides was manifested a show of national solidarity. The two nations stood apart. When the results were announced, the League had won every single Muslim seat in the Central Assembly. Muslim India had made it clear beyond any doubt that the only solution of India's political problems was the division of India into Pakistan and Hindustan. A cabinet mission was sent to India by the British government for the purpose of arriving at an agreed constitutional formula. the cabinet mission was agreeable to satisfying the Muslim desire for free development in their homelands while preserving the united structure of a single Indian state. This was the policy of the Labour Party. Members of the mission were personally inclined towards the Congress leaders and held private consultations with them through an emissary. But there were three parties to the dispute: the British, the Congress, and the Muslims. Quaid-e-Azam argued his case on this basis. He invited other minorities also to present their case. Quaid-e-Azam decided to give the proposals a working chance, but it seemed that their acceptance by Congress was not without reservations. The mission lived, according to Lord Wavell's journal, in the pocket of Congress. He wrote, "I sensed from the first that Cripps would take and encourage the Congress point of view. I knew that he had been in private correspondence with Nehru, and we have no intention at all of assisting the Muslim League to a complete Pakistan." The accord provided for a federal structure with limited powers. Provinces were to be formed in the autonomous groups, with provision for any province to opt out. Congress refused to accept the principle of parity with the League and insisted on nominating Congress Muslims on its quota of ministers. Wavell, the Viceroy, had started to yield under Congress pressure and invited Congress to form a government under instructions from the British government. The Quaid accused the British of breach of faith and withdrew acceptance of the plan. Pandit Nehru declared, "The Congress will enter the Constituent Assembly completely unfettered by agreements and will face all situations as they arise." The Muslims' protest was met by the Hindu expedient of rioting, which in time swept the whole of South Asia. Bihar and Bengal were hit first. The League decided to observe August the 16th as Direct Action Day. This day we say goodbye to constitutional methods. Now there is no room left for compromise. But the Quaid did not wish to leave the administration exclusively to Congress and decided to join the interim government as a matter of right on the part of the Muslims. Congress continued to interpret the powers of the Constituent Assembly for its own objectives and tried to find ways of denying the validity of the zonal scheme. Liaquat Ali Khan, as finance minister, levied the business profits tax, a measure which found no favor at all with the Hindu trading class. Differences between Congress and the League had now become irreconcilable. The Quaid-e-Azam said that the Congress' insistence on reopening the issue of the zonal scheme amounted to rejection of the plan. It must honor the agreement.
I am on my mission, and I can tell you nothing about the present. That's all I can say.
The British government upheld the Quaid stand, but the Congress remained adamant, and nothing came of it. The Congress tried to break the solidarity of the Muslims. In the Punjab, the Unionist Party, with a gross minority in the Assembly, was propped up by Congress through a coalition of the Hindu, Muslim, and Sikh landlords to keep the League out of office. A ban was imposed on the Muslim National Guards. The Muslim masses of the Punjab launched a civil disobedience movement of unprecedented size, which brought down the Unionist ministry. There followed a period of large-scale rioting, which might have had the effect of drowning in blood the growing movement for Pakistan. But the attitude of the British government and the adamance of Congress could no longer force the Muslims to give up their objective. Lord Louis Mountbatten, the new viceroy, was sent by Prime Minister Attlee to expedite the transfer of power. His appointment had been approved by Congress in the hope of getting a more advantageous deal. Pandit Nehru and he had earlier met in Singapore. On the 3rd of June, 1947, was announced to the world the partition of India and the formation of the two sovereign states of India and Pakistan.
We must remember that we have to take momentous decisions and handle grave issues facing us in the solution of the complex political problem of this great subcontinent inhabited by 400 million of people. The world has no parallel for the most onerous, difficult task which we have performed. I pray to God that this critical moment He may guide us and enable us to discharge our responsibility in a wise and statesmanlike manner.
Having failed to prevent the birth of Pakistan, the Hindu and Sikh leadership now sought to drown it in a sea of blood. The whole of East Punjab was set on fire to scorch out the Muslims from their hearths and homes. Thousands started trekking. The exchange of population started, in which the Sikhs and Hindus also suffered. The poet's dream had been realized. The Muslims of South Asia had now an independent homeland in which they could develop their social and cultural institutions according to their own lights. On August the 14th, 1947, power was transferred.
This day marks the end of a pregnant phase in our national history, and it should also be the beginning of a new and a noble era. Pakistan! Pakistan Zindabad!
On Congress insistence, Punjab and Bengal were partitioned down to the Tehsil level, and the Muslim majority district of Gurdaspur was so partitioned as to enable India to maintain links with Kashmir. East Punjab was to be finally cleared of Muslims, according to plan. Pakistan might have been crushed at birth. 10 million refugees were to be settled. Cash in hand, 200 million. Immediate liabilities, 350 million. We have been the victims of a deeply laid and well-planned conspiracy, said the Quaid. To build quickly was his advice. There was no state or government structure. And unrest in Kashmir started almost immediately. The Quaid went everywhere, comforting those in distress, exhorting those who would rest on their oars to increased effort. He laid down the principles on which the state and the society had to be reorganized. In Chittagong, the Quaid said, Pakistan should be based on the sure foundation of social justice and Islamic socialism, which emphasizes equality and brotherhood of man. Brotherhood, equality, and fraternity of man, these are all the basic points of our religion, culture, and civilization. And we fought for Pakistan, because there was a danger of denial of these human rights in the subcontinent. The Punjab had borne the brunt of the problem of refugees from India. The Quaid gave courage and faith to the people of Lahore and said, "Do your duty and have faith in God. There is no power on earth that can undo Pakistan." In his last public appearance, on the occasion of the opening of the State Bank of Pakistan, the Quaid-e-Azam enunciated the foundational principle of the economic policy of Pakistan. He said, "The Western world, in spite of its advantages of mechanization and industrial efficiency, is today in a worse mess than ever before in history. The adoption of Western economic theory and practice will not help us in achieving our goal of creating a happy and contented people. We must work our destiny in our own way and present the world with an economic system based on the true Islamic concepts of equality of man and social justice." Driven to desperation by the Dogra oppression in the predominantly Muslim state of Kashmir, the people resisted and rose to liberate themselves. The Indian Army entered the field with sophisticated weapons. The British Radcliffe Award had borne fruit. Tribesmen from the northwest frontier of Pakistan came to Kashmir to the aid of their brethren. On his sickbed at Ziyarat, the Quaid's last thoughts were for Kashmir. "Verily, we come from Allah, and to Allah do we return." Quaid-e-Azam is dead, and suddenly the people, for whose nationhood he had waged a lifelong struggle, are left forlorn.
That his life and his property and the religious belief should be fully protected by the state at any cost. My guiding principle will be justice, fair play, and complete impartiality in the discharge of my duty. And I'm sure, with your support and cooperation, I'm looking forward to making Pakistan one of the greatest nations of the world.
ياسين والقرآن الحكيم إنك لمن المرسلين على صراط مستقيم. تنزيل العزيز الرحيم
أشهد أن لا إله. I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and I bear witness that Muhammad is his slave and messenger.